A lot of people who misunderstand Bitcoin, investors in the marketplace, think Bitcoin is trying to compete with the dollar. I think they're complementary. And the dollar is global, it's worldwide, it's the reserve asset. Why in the world would you try to compete with a medium of exchange technology that has already captured pretty much 100% of the global economy? It doesn't really make that much sense. But what we know about the dollar is that it's not a store of value. It's a really bad store of value because it can be issued ad infinitum. And ever since 2020, we've seen that peak up dramatically, which is waking people up to the fact that money is a store of value. And to be a store of value, you can't increase the supply at ridiculous rates. Now, we have a natural money in gold, which through its cost of production, limited its supply expansion. But with Bitcoin, we have not just a natural money, we have an engineered money. We have something that through computer code introduces the concept of absolute digital scarcity. For the first time in human history, we have a monetary asset that supply cannot be expanded. That's a really hard pill to swallow. And it's really hard to understand that the only way to get the increase of supply in Bitcoin, the only way to get the circulating Bitcoin to increase is to get the price to go up. So because of that, I believe that that was a strategic design. And therefore, I call it engineered money. So we have this savings technology that you can use along with spending technology, being the dollar, and some magic happens when you do that. So I look forward to getting into borrowing against Bitcoin with dollars being the best way to spend your Bitcoin without giving up ownership. But it's a wild time we're moving into right now, and I do think many are missing it.
So what you just said, I think, is then Bitcoin is this new engineered type of money that's solving a different need or different purpose than what the fiat currency is doing. But again, is the fiat currency at the end of the final stage of its life cycle, or it's sort of run the course and now we need something else to complement it?
Well, I think that we were in a position to where the currency itself could somewhat serve as a store of value. So I do believe that if the currency system wasn't abused and the amount of dollars wasn't expanded at the rapid rate that we see today, at least $2 trillion in our ongoing deficit, then theoretically, the dollar could maintain its value. And if credit was not extended ad infinitum and the supply of dollars declined, perhaps the dollar could even gain value, theoretically. So it has the ability to actually function that way. But because we have put ourselves in this position, because we have allowed ourselves to conform to the idea that something is too big to fail, we now find ourselves in this situation. See, with Bitcoin, when we went through all of the rehypothecation scheme of version 1 of Bitcoin lending with Genesis and FTX and BlockFi and Celsius, and we had this big rehypothecation period that when it collapsed, we couldn't print the Bitcoin. So we failed. But that failure is a critical part of the business cycle. And in the traditional markets, we don't get that part of the business cycle. We print over it because it's too big to fail. And when you don't allow companies to fail, what you're doing is you're creating zombie companies. And I think we've gone so far now that these zombie companies have infected the economy, and we have a zombie economy. And that's why we're able to print trillions of dollars, spend it into the economy, and still see debt to GDP go up. Still see our financial position become less and less healthy. So we have a really big problem right now with the dollar. And if we don't figure out a way to strengthen our financial position, then yeah, we are at the end of our life cycle. We will get to a point where people will not even want to use the dollar as a medium of exchange, because if they don't spend it immediately, they're going to be able to buy less and less stuff over time. And we're seeing that ramp up since 2020, and people are paying attention, but we haven't gotten to that hyperinflationary point. But the only difference between inflation and hyperinflation is trust. So if we continue to abuse the printer and abuse the trust of we the people, then we will get to a point where dollars will end up worthless on the street. And I don't want that, and I don't think anybody in their right mind really wants that.
So would you say that then, because of this endless money printing, the monetary debasement, which I agree, they say there's only two things certain in life, death and taxes, and I would also probably put money printing there. Since that is not scheduled to end anytime soon, and is pushing this to the final stages, as you're saying, also most people at this point know that they shouldn't be trying to save their wealth in dollars. There was that meme of Michael Saylor saying something about we have a word for them, we call them poor. I think it was something like that. I'm sure you saw it. Which is why then, as I said, at the same time, we see stocks making new all-time highs. But I think what you're saying, though, is that because the dollar is being printed to infinity, the debasement is continuing to go on. If we continue down this path, nobody's going to want to use it, a loss of trust, hyperinflation. But then are you saying that potentially Bitcoin could help extend the runway and the life of the dollar?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we're doing right now is we're printing those dollars and we're investing them into the economy. But we're printing a dollar with interest, call it $1.04, principal being $1.04 being the interest. And we're investing it, and the return on investment, depending on the tax bracket of the vertical you're investing in, is really maybe 30 to 50%. So we're investing $1, we're only getting back 30 to 50 cents. We need to get back more than $1.04. And because we're not getting back more than $1.04 through that investment, the debt continues to grow. The unfunded liabilities continue to grow. The debt to GDP continues to grow. We become in a weaker and weaker position. And I consider this a matter of national economic security. If you look at El Salvador, they have some of the best performing traditional bonds in the world. Number one, because Bukele is cleaning up the country. But number two, because they put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And what that does is it strengthens their financial position. So if something were to go wrong, they could tap into that 24/7, 365 liquid marketplace that Bitcoin is to fix that problem. So what the United States needs to do if they want to, I think, strengthen the dollar is to take some of the money that they're printing and buy Bitcoin. Because when you put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, if you take that dollar, you invest it into the economy, you're not getting back principal plus interest. If you invest it into bringing out natural resources, it's going to take significant investment and time to actually see any revenues from that. I'm pretty sure nobody wants to sell Alaska to Russia. So we're limited on how we can monetize the asset side of our balance sheet, and we're limited on what assets we can invest in to amplify the performance of the asset side of our balance sheet. And then here comes this magic internet money, Bitcoin. But it's absolutely digitally scarce, and it's engineered money, and it was strategically designed to store value over space and time. And when we take that dollar and invest it into Bitcoin, yes, there will be ups and downs, but in the long run, Bitcoin's 5-year compounding annual growth rate is over 60%. Its 10-year compounding annual growth rate is over 80%. The adoption rates are following that of the internet, and we're at the very beginning of it. Everything here, all the signals are telling us if we print some money and buy Bitcoin, or if we use budget neutral strategies to accumulate Bitcoin and we get it on the asset side of our balance sheet for the first time in a very long time, we have a chance for the asset side of our country's balance sheet to outgrow, or at least the growth of the asset side to outpace the growth of the liability side.